It's my song! Let's sing it! It's gonna be freaking awesome! Come on! It's gonna be freaking awesome! You know the words! It's gonna be freaking awesome! That's it! Sing! It's gonna be freaking awesome! Yeah! Hey! 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 It's my favorite part! Isn't that heavy? I'll play that. Coolest alive. Ready, set, go.
All right, everybody, it's Jesse Blaze Snider. Welcome back to another fabulous episode of the Coolest Geek Alive. Thank you for being here. Today, we are talking about Man of Steel. I was all ready to tear this movie a new butthole because, well, it just so thoroughly disappointed me at the time when I saw it. But having looked back on it now, I like it a lot more than I did at the time. It doesn't change any of my feelings about why I think it's all wrong and why I think it was the worst way to kick off this new shared DC cinematic universe, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but it's a good movie. If it wasn't a Superman movie, I would have really liked it. Unfortunately, it was a Superman movie. So I took running notes as I watched the movie, and while I admit it's a really great movie, it's a beautiful movie, it could have been better if it featured Superman the way I know him, the way I've learned to see Superman reading comics. And I really believe that if you haven't read some of the great Superman comics that really extol Superman's virtues within the pages because of how well executed they are and the high moral ideal that you see on display, Superman always does the right thing. It's not until you read a story where it would be so easy for him to snap some dude's neck and he figures out another way. The thing I learned from Superman, from reading Superman comics, is there's always a better way. And from being a more sort of open to spiritual thought as I've gotten older, the concept of infinity, this infinite good that is represented by a man who stands by his morality and will find another way. There is a way in the infinity of possibilities. There is a way that I can do this without resorting to murder. You know, this is the beautiful light that Superman represents. And his parents, having two parents in a farm, raise him right, be raised right. Superman comes from good, all-American stock, and he was taught the right things about how to be a good man. And he is actively demonstrating that every day as aliens and monsters and crazy people and evil geniuses are trying to take over the world, and he shows restraint, and he brings them all in alive and refuses to play the intimidation game and the threatening game that Batman plays. That's one of the cool things about Batman Superman, and one of the reasons why it's such a big mistake the way they present Superman in this movie, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. But Batman and Superman are being published alongside each other. So what that means is people have a choice when they go to the newsstand every week. Comic books usually come out every Wednesday. That's why we release our show on Wednesday. So comic books come out, and you see Batman, you see Superman. Are you in the mood for kind of horror, or are you in the mood for adventure? Superman's supposed to be that bright adventure comic or science fiction comic, depending on how it's being done. And, actually, I'd probably say science fiction comic is more fair. I sound like an idiot now that I think about it. Good thing I caught myself there. I didn't plan out this metaphor. I'm sorry. Superman and Batman are different things. They have to be different things. If Superman and Batman were both science fiction comics, they would be competing with each other's sales, essentially. They're fighting for sales space and sales numbers and readership, and they have to get there by offering something dramatically different from each other. And these are things that has to happen with The Flash, and has to happen with Green Lantern, and has to happen with any character that might be produced. You're not going to see a character who's exactly like Superman right alongside Superman. They're always being depicted naturally in some other way, like, recent Supergirls especially. Their origin stories have gotten really ugly. So where Superman has come from a wholesome background, Supergirl has really come from like a rough place. And so she's coming at everything from a much more Batman-like place, which is great because Superman and Batman bounce off each other really well. So having having a Supergirl who's a little bit like Batman, well, you can make that work. That's a good dynamic. Comic books are all about dynamics. It's about pitting one moralistic perspective against another moralistic perspective. So pitting Batman against the Joker. Batman is focused, Joker is chaos. These are two yin and yang things. That's why they work so well. For a long time, Warner Brothers has had this thing where they seem to want to make every character that they own through DC Comics more like Batman. They see that Batman's the most popular of all of them, and they want everybody to be Batman. And I feel that this Man of Steel movie was very much we need to make Superman more like Batman because Batman's more interesting than Superman. And hey, look, it may be true that Batman is more interesting and more compelling from the outside looking in. I know I was guilty of feeling that way when I was a young reader. I read Marvel Comics first, and then my friend got me into Batman. And then through Batman, I got into everything else. I thought that Superman was overpowered and, nobody's that good and like that kind of perspective on things. And then I read some great Superman stories, one of which I'm going to talk about at the end of this episode. I reread it to kind of talk about it. I took some screenshots of some of the dialogue in the book, and I'm going to share some of the bits with you that I think really encapsulate who the Superman character really is and how we're missing something if we're not having a Superman that exists like this. And I do believe that the world where the Elseworld Superman who is black, or the Elseworld Superman who is anything but the traditional Clark Kent Superman being a good guy, can exist. And I actually happen to think that the Injustice Superman storyline, one of my friends worked on the comic book there, and it was very good and really well done. But it is enjoyable and great to have that when you have the actual Superman who does the right thing. It's the Superman that does the right thing that makes that Superman who becomes a bad guy so tragic, because you know that he could have been a good guy if circumstances were different. And I think that really is the context in which things like Man of Steel need to be sat. It's an Elseworlds depiction of Superman. There's a better, more powerful version of Superman, and it's where he finds another way. And I'm going to get a little bit into that in terms of like the ending and whatnot in just a little bit. But I feel that way. I have felt that way. And I really believe that if you don't feel that way, it's only because you've never read a truly great Superman story that demonstrated his goodness. Not every one of them does. But there are some Superman stories like What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way by Joe Kelly and Doug Mank that are incredible. Where is it, Doug Mank? I think it is. I'll know when I look at the pictures in a little bit. But, I went back to reread it as a one issue. It was an anniversary issue. And was so amazing. The whole thing was just a premise of these heroes who were showing up and they were killing people. They were doing what was necessary. These were really bad people and they were getting rid of them. And essentially you think that Superman is going to kill them because of like he's getting really embarrassed by them, and they get into this confrontation and all of a sudden it goes like bad, and you think that like, oh crap, did Superman just break his morality? And the whole story was kind of like giving a lot of strength to why his morality mattered, and him not lowering himself to this modern hero. These modern heroes, they kill. Well, I'm not going to kill. I'm Superman. It's really well done. It's not kid stuff. It's great. It takes you to the. I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but they made a movie of it. Don't watch the movie. Read the comic. You can download it on Amazon or whatever. I think it's Action Comics, like $7.75 or something like that. But Joe Kelly, What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, and it's like I said, I'm going to share some stuff in a little bit. But first, let's talk about Man of Steel. All right. The first note that I had written here was I said, if it wasn't a Superman movie, I'd feel very differently about it. I like Zack Snyder as a director. He makes very pretty movies. This movie's pretty too. I've enjoyed him creatively on every level, but he did not adapt this with respect for the creators who built the myth, and that's where the ultimate problem lies. For me, that movie is made by a studio who approved this pitch by Zach, who was somebody who doesn't really get Superman, has never really particularly liked Superman, and has always been drawn to the darker characters. By a studio that too don't get Superman and prefer Batman, and when they got a pitch to make Superman into Batman, they were like, yes, that's what we wanted. We want more Batmans in the world. But not everybody can be Batman. And really, when it comes to things like the Justice League, you don't want scary Superman, scary Batman. It's scary Batman, inspiring Superman. These dynamics, these subtle dynamics between these characters, they fill out a team. They make these groups like the Guardians of the Galaxy feel full. Like it or not, there's energetic patterns that everybody's going through in their life, and the horoscope is something that tries to make a science out of all the different people that you're running into. Whether you think that's true or not, different people are filling different holes. Different people are filling different holes. Different holes are being filled in different ways. Everybody is a unique snowflake. I don't know how to say this. Everybody... sorry, I'm going to have to laugh at myself and how I can't articulate this point. But I always just kind of see a pie chart, and everybody is representing sort of different temperatures, different degrees of personality. And the more separated they are from each other, the more they bounce up against each other in interesting ways, either funny ways, supportive ways, or ways in which they start to fight and bicker or whatever else because they disagree about different things. The Justice League is interesting when you have heroes who have good dynamics and play off each other in interesting ways because they don't exactly see the world the same way. That makes it interesting when their worldviews come together. This is really the bedrock of all of comic books and why the superhero films have become what they've become, but they're really losing their way as they're falling short in lots of little details. As this movie falls short in tons of little details, which we'll talk about later. Krypton has an H.R. Geiger aesthetic to it that I think isn't exactly on brand. Would have been much better to base it on some of the beautiful art rendered by various artists in the comics. Examples. There's some amazing depictions of Superman's homeworld, and it's cool, and it's got like a 1940s aesthetic or whatever. And you tell me, do you want an arbitrary cool paint of polish on the stuff that you love? Did you like it as like a Transformers fan when they just did that like extra layer of detail on all the Transformers crap that Michael Bay put out? I hated that stuff. I just want to see these things that I love brought to life. There's a bunch of characters in this movie who are race swapped or hair swapped. And, it seems like a silly little thing of hair swap. Like every time I see Lois Lane, I just like, that's not Lois Lane. Because it looks like Superman's cheating on Lois Lane because she's got red hair in the movie. I know it's this seemingly little thing that you go like, why do you care? Because it's so amazing when they do it right. Like Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy, it was really cute. They did it right. She looked like Gwen Stacy. That was so nice. It was just so satisfying. They just did this Sandman series, and like I'm really annoyed that they recast Death. You know what? Even if they wanted to recast Death as like a black woman, which like the race doesn't matter. I don't think even as much as just the aesthetic. Death has such a unique look. The white goth makeup. And she's supposed to be brother to Morpheus, and them having a similar look to one another connected them more as siblings. There are so many reasons why different things are being done story-wise. And when they're sort of arbitrarily changed for no good reason, it really drives me crazy. There are great black characters, for instance, in Superman comic books. First of all, John Henry Irons, who's just one of my favorite characters in comic books, because John Henry Irons' origin is so simple and so cool. And it's the thing to me that the Steel movie with Shaquille O'Neal is really missing, because it's the thing that makes you love him. Is John Henry Irons was saved by Superman, and he basically asked Superman what he could do to repay him, and Superman told John Henry to make it worth it or something like that. Make it worthwhile that I saved your life, kind of thing. And when Superman died during the Death of Superman storyline, John Henry Irons came out as Steel because he built an Iron Man costume kind of thing, and he wanted to go out and fill the gap that was missing because Superman was gone, because Superman saved his life. He shouldn't be there. And oh my God, thinking about it right now, I'm such a baby. It makes me want to cry, though. Isn't that so sweet? That's so sweet to me. It makes me want to cry. Sorry. I'm getting all misty. I gotta be a macho man. No, as we can see, I'm not a particularly macho man. But anyway, John Henry Irons is a great one. Granted, John Henry Irons, that's a jump for the immediate storylines in the Man of Steel movie. But you do have characters like Ron Trope. I think it's Trope. I've only read it in the comics. Who works in the newsroom? Characters that you can beef up, or you introduce a new character, and the new character, gloves are off. New character, make us love them, let the actor make us love them, and we're super happy. We're like, oh yeah, they took 4 different characters from the comics and they made this new character, and we really like them now. And then you see them added into the comic book and whatnot. That's cool. It's cool when you make a new character. Make all the new characters that you want if they're going to be awesome. When you change the things that we like, even something as simple as Lois's hair, every time I see Superman and her kissing, it was like, no, Superman, he's cheating on Lois. which is, I'm sure I'm not the only person who feels this way. I've looked at enough Superman comics. I've seen those colors, her black hair and his black blue kind of hair, but the dark hair of the two of them, it's just what I've come to know. And what you've come to know is what you want to see. If they made a live-action Bebe's Kids and they recast all of the kids as Hispanic kids, I'd be very disappointed. I want to see. I like Bebe's Kids. It's a funny little movie. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend Bebe's Kids to everybody, but I loved that movie when I was a kid. And if they made a remake of it as a live-action movie and they changed everybody arbitrarily, they're Colombian now or whatever, no, keep the thing that I like the way it was. The idea that you might bring the thing that I like to life is incredible. Yay, I'd love to see that brought to life. But, not at the expense of the thing where it's just I'm not even going to recognize it anymore. It just bastardizes the things we like. And the best adaptations of anything that I can think of are all really good and faithful adaptations, like Lord of the Rings. It's just a really faithful adaptation of the material. And look how wonderful it is. It's one of the greatest achievements in fantasy. And trust me when I say, as a writer, if we made more things the way the Lord of the Rings was made, we would have more mantelpiece fantasy films and television shows than you could count. But it's the inability to take the thing seriously, like when we were talking about with MODOK and selling the thing short and thinking that the thing's not good enough the way it is. In the case of this movie, Superman needs to be more like Batman. No, he doesn't. He needs to be more like Superman, because Superman is an interesting character in and of himself, and Batman is an interesting character in and of themselves. And if you want to bring them together and have it mean anything, they can't be nearly identical. Powers, it doesn't matter. It's not in this comic books. It's not about the powers. It's about the morality. The Punisher matters because he will shoot a supervillain in the head and not think twice about it. Daredevil will beat the guy to a bloody pulp. Spider-Man won't. These are three different thoughts on things. Then we put them together. We put them as a group, and now we see them bounce off each other, and it's a wonderful thing to behold when it's done right. One of the best teams, one of my father's favorite teams, is the Defenders, which has four main members: Silver Surfer, Doctor Strange, Namor the Submariner, who's not that guy you just saw in the Wakanda movie. Boy, did they mess up Namor. I'll talk about that some other time. And the Hulk. And Namor and the Hulk in the comics were such a great combination, because one of them was just like sort of super regal and a jerk, and the other one was stupid, and the jerky one would treat the stupid one bad, and they would end up fighting with each other all the time, like siblings or something. And, in the middle of whatever was going on, they'd be fighting amongst each other. And those sorts of power dynamics where you just have different characters who are really legitimized in their own series and have a world that they come from, meet up against somebody else who's just as real in their own way, and have them bounce off of each other for a little while. If it's done right, it's amazing. But if these things, these differences between the characters are equalized, then there's no room to bounce off, anything from anyone. I really feel like it's a kind of a disrespectful thing when we don't bring any of these artists' art to life. There's some amazing art that has been done of these locations, and to not just honor the artists by trying to match some of the aesthetics. Obviously, they just did their own thing here, and they did this H.R. Geiger thing, and I'm not a fan. Okay, may I just say the General Zod is number one, my least favorite Superman villain of all time. It's just a dude who is a dick with Superman's powers. Flash forward all these years after Christopher Reeve's Superman, and our antagonist is just another human who looks just like Superman. Can do everything he can do. Yay. Yeah, no, it's boring as hell. The previous Superman movie was boring as hell, the Superman Returns, and this is boring as hell. And I mean, just really, he's a science fiction character. Use some things that are visually interesting. Brainiac has been sitting there this entire time. I think it was low-hanging fruit to make a movie where Brainiac shows up. That one is a great one to establish Superman's origin, all these different things. It was already laid out with a beautiful blueprint in the Bruce Timm Paul Dini Superman animated series. Brainiac is a great character. You can dress him up in all different ways, and the fans wouldn't care as long as Brainiac was there, and the visuals would be so much better, so much more compelling. Give him something to do, and here we are. He's fighting another dude with the same exact powers as him. How many damn superhero movies are we going to have to watch where the dude fights another dude with the same exact powers as him at the end of the movie? It's my least favorite thing. It makes the end of so many of, my favorite movies Something like Black Panther, like I really loved Black Panther until, or when they took Venom in Spider-Man 3 and they made him skinny and scrawny and small and nebbish like Peter Parker is. Let's see what else I've got here to say. Henry Cavill's dreamy. Yeah, I like him. Okay, first major critique of the movie. Our first demonstration of Superman's powers, he does something in a way that stupidly allows him to be seen, when he could have literally run away, moved back to a seat, done anything to cover up the fact that he was a superpowered person. I know we want the movie to happen, but we could have done something that would have maintained the secret identity. Or we could have had his dad tell him that you got to maintain your secret identity, son, instead of all this nonsense about hiding and not saving people because he doesn't want to risk being discovered. How about middle ground instead of all of this like Area 51, they're going to take you, son. I hate this fear-mongering father persona. And, we're getting into him dying in a little bit, him allowing himself to die. It was so messed up to feature Pa Kent like that. Pa Kent is, of anything that I can think of that's amazing Americana around a good father to me in comic books, it's Pa Kent. And I just don't like to see things happen to Pa Kent as a fan. I like to think that Superman can keep his father safe and that his father's good heart and optimism will keep his father safe. And I don't like this conspiracy nut version of his father. I said in my next thing here, what's with all the ominous lighting every single time you see his father? The fundamental problem with the entire movie. Pa Kent is supposed to be a beacon of light, teaching him about honor, respect, goodness, and he's in the dark, telling his son to be afraid. It honestly makes me sick. This is like seeing some twisted evil version of a fable that I know that's beautiful and heartwarming and uplifting, and somebody took this beautiful fable and turned it into this cautionary tale. What kind of a person does that? To take something beautiful and turn it into something ugly. Superman is beautiful, and this movie is ugly. What Pa Kent teaches Clark is really ugly. I remember seeing Passion of the Christ. I actually generally think Mel Gibson is a very good director. He's made a lot of amazing movies. But I was upset with him about Passion of the Christ because it focused so heavily on Jesus' suffering and so little. I mean, even if he just wanted to put a little bit of what Jesus had to say, there was, really wonderful, sage pieces of wisdom that man allegedly or did go through to he suffered for a reason. There's things to be learned from his story, and to not tell any of the story and just make a movie that's just him suffering, to me that was betraying the character of Jesus in a bad light. You didn't give him enough time to shine in his message and what he was about. And I think similarly in this movie, we're not giving enough time to shine the positive of Pa Kent. Like, let's say you want to put this little bit of an element into Pa Kent's thing. You could do that, but then you would also show positive things about Pa Kent. Granted, you wouldn't have him die in a tornado. Slightly after that, I wrote, so Pa Kent teaches his son to hide his abilities at all costs, and Superman watches his father die when he could have easily flown over and saved him. He literally stands there to make it dramatic. He let his father die. He could have run and grabbed him and run back. What does it say? That his father would rather die than risk his son's secret? That he's an optimist? No. He's as pessimistic as you get. This movie is as pessimistic as it gets. It's a Superman movie, and it's pessimistic. I also really don't like the idea that Clark Kent is a reporter for the Daily Planet by the end of Man of Steel, basically because he has the hots for Lois Lane. I think that's an awful idea. They try to cover it in whatever fashion, but there are ways in which things are laid out. Superman was into writing. He was a writer. He's a gentle man. He believes that the pen is mightier than the sword. He's trying to do good in the world, writing things down. That it gives so much meaning to the character to have him doing it on any level because he's chasing tail. Even if you said, no, he's interested in it too. He just happens to be chasing tail so we can have Lois Lane in the movie. It just all sullies it. It's beautiful. It's a fairy tale when it's that dynamic of him purist. I am the most mighty man in the world, and I do the delicate job. I write pretty words. I try to convince people with my mind. That is what makes Superman Superman. And it's a pity to have but to have lost that or have it been tarnished in this movie. All these little things are what makes the beautiful picture of the character for somebody like me. And I know I'm not the only one out there. So holler at me in the comments section if indeed you feel that way. And also subscribe and rate us 5 stars. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you supporting the show. Okay, continuing on here. I said so Superman is a creepy stalker. Yeah, that's basically it. Superman's a creepy stalker now. I said Perry White is an overweight white guy with brown hair. This is like if we made a biopic about Lincoln and we gave him a clean shave, blue jacket, and fancy hat. That's not Lincoln. That's not what he looks like. You know, seeing Lois, Perry, and Clark and Jimmy Olsen all in the mailroom together laughing about something, the hair color and the shape of the bodies, like these things matter to me if you really want to bring to life what I love. If you want to do the best job, it's about bringing that as close to life as possible. Yeah, you might have to make some adjustments here or there, but there's certain things that I don't think are really necessary. There are people with the same color hair as Lois Lane. There are people who look like these characters. The more we can show up with the right answer to the problem, the more your audience is going to be super, super just thrilled with you. This is kind of a plot commentary. Why is the atmosphere different on their ship? The whole thing of them changing the atmosphere is just really stupid. Why do they have different atmospheric needs? So the movie can happen. Because they want to destroy the atmosphere so the humans can't live there anymore. Even though Clark Kent, who is the Kryptonian as well, he's been living there for 20 years perfectly fine. It's what a stupid idea. Yeah, and Zod is unwilling to coexist with the humans because why? So I can suffer through years of pain like your son has? If you don't remember the movie, Clark Kent was dealing with acclimation symptoms to being a Kryptonian where things were really loud and it was difficult to deal with it. And when their spacesuits get broken in this movie, all of a sudden these Kryptonian people, they start to get the same powers. They start to get the same deal going on with them. And his literal excuse for why he had to turn this machine on that's going to basically kill all the humans on the planet, this is how evil this guy is because, oh man, I don't want to go through an acclimation period. Ugh, come on. Like that is a pretty evil villain. I wish that was focused on a little bit more because it's kind of ran over so fast. I don't know if they understand what they were actually saying there, but that's what they were saying. He's a bad dude. One of my notes is, thank God Superman's other father is a good guy, played by Russell Crowe, his Kryptonian dad. He's wholesome and sweet and optimistic and felt like Superman. Those moments were really nice. At one point in the film, his dad says, "You can save all of them." Great line. Classic Superman. It was a little over the top. Right after that, there's a hole in the side of Zod's ship, and Superman does like this Jesus exit. It's a little weird. So now we're getting towards the end of the movie, and I just start writing, way to destroy an IHOP. Now let's destroy the trains and the train tracks, only destroying my entire hometown and putting everybody's life in danger. Oh my God, the destruction in this movie, the level of non-strategic care for the people around you. Superman is a character who cares about others and does for others most of all. I just hated seeing him depicted on screen not behaving that way. There are so many other characters that you could have told this kind of story with, but Superman, you tarnish a legacy and you deprive him of some of his meaning. Like you take away its richness. He's a much richer character when he's morally on point. I said this would be really cool if it wasn't Superman. I said take this damn fight out of Metropolis. Again, just more destruction. There's only one way this ends, Cal, is the dialogue. You die or I do. And I think this is just awful writing, and like you literally have told me that the only way is for us to kill him because I said it out loud. And I mean, even if you're gonna kill him, like, have it be a damn surprise when your audience is thinking that your character doesn't do that because they're fans of this character, because he doesn't do that. It's just that line stuck out so bad. You know, death is too easy. And this movie takes the easy way out at the end of the movie. Superman should and can and could find a better way. The easy answer in the comic books has always been put him in the Phantom Zone. Superman uses the Phantom Zone projector. That's what they were put in the first place. They were put in the Phantom Zone. He puts them back in the Phantom Zone. Okay, if you don't want your ending to be, oh, he puts them back in the Phantom Zone, well, then be smart enough to come up with a better solution that isn't killing them, because Superman doesn't kill. That's when Superman is at his best, when he is the idealist and he's finding a better way. It makes for more interesting stories because the end of the story isn't, and then he killed the guy. Superman stories don't end that way. Superman stories end, and then he came up with a better idea. Then he figured out a way to do it that solved all the problems. That's how a great Superman story ends. It ends with him being creative and coming up with a better solution than, so I killed the guy. There are great comic books that end with, so I killed the guy, all the time. I happen to be a big fan of The Punisher. It's, so I killed the guy. It's quite satisfying. But Superman is satisfying for other reasons, and it's not because, so I killed the guy. Well, that's it. That wraps up my perspective on Man of Steel. And since it took me so long to rant about this movie in the first place, I'm not going to go into any further detail about what's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Because honestly, thinking about it, I'd hate to spoil the glorious read for you. Check that one out. Really, just, it's a single issue. It's a Superman comic. It's a really easy place to get started. I used to do a little like charity thing in comics called I Don't Know Shit About Comics. And it was to educate people who wanted to get into comics but were a little bit nervous and intimidated by the hobby because there were so many years of history and whatnot. Anyway, I used to just make lists of good comic books for people to enter the hobby, good entry points into reading comics. And honestly, this one isn't on any of our lists in that fashion, but this single issue is such a great entry point to comics, such a great entry point into Superman in particular. Shout out to my boy, living legend, Joe Kelly. He also is responsible for why Deadpool is so cool. He really turned that character into the character he is today. And Joe Kelly's one of my favorite writers. And when he started writing Superman, that's when I started reading Superman. And I'm so glad that I did. And he and the other writers that he was working with at the time, they made me love that character. And I do. I love Superman to this day. And I want you to know that all of my comments and critiques come from that place of love. I love this material. I want to see it handled well. I've been inspired by this material. I want to see other people be inspired by it. And I really believe that if you go out and get your hands on or digitally download issue 775 of Action Comics, you're going to be inspired too. That's the magic of comic books. The inspiration to really do something, to change the world. That's why I read comics. I got to imagine I'm not the only one. Anyway, subscribe and rate the show. Thank you for listening this long. Drop me a comment. I haven't been able to read any of them yet because I'm actually far ahead in producing episodes, but I will get to them as soon as I start seeing them. And there'll be a little bit of a delay, but eventually I'll probably do a comments-only episode. Love you guys. Thank you for joining me once again, and I'll see you next time on Coolest Geek Alive.
Isn't that heavy?
You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
Stay with your tribe. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Revenge of the Geeks. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Week after weeks. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Laughing with you. It's gonna be freaking awesome. And cry sometimes too. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Spelling it out. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Making you shout. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Living legit. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Food in our mouth. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Get in our mouth. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Tell all your friends. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Call right or text. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Raising the bar. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Straight to the stars. It's gonna be freaking awesome. It's starting soon. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Passing the moon. It's gonna be freaking awesome. On with the show. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Ready, set, go. It's going to be freaking awesome. Freaking awesome. It's going to be freaking awesome. Just wait. You'll see. You'll all see.